Welcome to the Cooper 2017 year-end video.
This is the 14th year of the Cooper year-end videos.
Coming back for the 5th year is the 20 years ago and 50 years ago feature.
For now, it is December of 2016.
Yes, December starts with the Snow Ranch launch and a piñata rocket flight. Everything looked good in person. Rocket flew a little cockeyed, but it was a safe flight and kids got candy.
Probably.
Tony noticed that the rail buttons were damaged. As you may have guessed, the piñata is a pretty big deal at the launches. There are a lot of cameras tracking it. Some of the lunar members share their photos. Reviewing those photos, it was obvious that the rocket rotated on the pad as it was lifting off. This is what broke the rail buttons. That was weird. Wonder what happened? One of the photos showed the moment that the air starts ignited. Tony thought it was the best shot of the day. This last shot is pretty impressive too. Shows the moment that the candy is deployed.
Crystal graduated in the spring, but before that can happen, photos must be taken. She is pretty happy about having a rat as a pet. Her mother insisted on having at least one photo without the rat.
Crystal celebrated Christmas with her rat. The only thing she wanted was a cage for the rat. Her mommy got to help her assemble it. Tony can't remember what Kevin wanted, but he was there.
On December 30th, the Cooper family gathered at John and Katie's house for their annual holiday gathering. They all ate, drank and shared a few stories of the days gone by. January 2017.
The new year started and Grandma Peggy gave Crystal the best gift ever. A dead opossum. Several Coopers debated about why it perished. Crystal didn't care. She spent a couple special hours with the opossum in the backyard skinning it. Tony's surveillance cameras caught the gist of the ordeal. Tony was quite amused when night fell and Crystal had to keep running over to the motion detector to make the light turn back on. This is a 1-minute video of the 2 hours of skinning.
One morning in January, Tony's bar train trip was interrupted by a medical emergency. That is barred code for someone jumped in front of a train. He decided to take an extra long walk to work. This gave him a new view of his work building in the early morning sunlight. February 2017.
February, and that makes it Tony and Cheryl's anniversary. It was number 30 this year. They invited Bob Cooper along. Tony reserved some small wineries with reservation-only tours. Bob asked if they could include Beringer in the list. No problem. Then they had to treat Bob to the private tasting room at their favorite winery, Castello di Amorosa. Tony even splurged for the private reserve juice. When they all returned to the hotel room that night, the power was out. They sat up chatting and drinking the day's purchases. No photos because it was dark, of course. Knowing there was no power, they did not try to turn on the lights. Hence, they did not know when the power had been restored. At some point Cheryl noticed that someone had left the bathroom light on.
The next day, they all made a trip to the Satui winery just to buy Kathy Chamberlain's favorite booze. While there, Tony and Cheryl ended up joining another wine club. Good stuff.
For their actual anniversary, Tony planned a lunch wine cruise on the bay, a trip to the Golden Gate Bridge and supper at the Cliff House. Trouble is that the weather gods planned to rain. They made the best of the soggy conditions.
Last event in February was a BJ's Brewhouse beer pairing dinner. Some suggested that Tony had too much to drink when he started wearing the decorations.
March 2017.
March and it was back to flying rockets. Another awesome launch. Other than an odd kick at ignition, it seemed to fly straight, and amazingly, the candy was dropped on the heads of the kids. They really didn't have to move this time.
Alright, look up! Look up! Look up! Nice job!
But, as with December's launch, there were high speeds still to be viewed. They showed a different story. The rocket did a complete rotation around the rail as it lifted off. This time we could see that the rail actually spun with the rocket. Something isn't right with the rails.
Next day and another great launch. No high-speed cameras this time around. Just candy falling for the kids.
Next day and another successful launch, and there was high-speed photos. Same sort of spinning action happening at liftoff.
A week later and Lunar smashed all the blast deflector plates flat. It was a much better launch. We deduced that the angled blast deflector plates were inducing an angular thrust.
Must have been a special school day. Crystal dressed up as a leprechaun.
A week later and she had her license. Drove herself to school for the first time.
March means monster trucks. It is racing day and a pit party. At the pit party, Crystal obliged her daddy and posed with the zombie actors. She actually sought out Monster Mutt, harkening back to her little girl phase. Tony had to take his obligatory pose with Maximum Destruction. Cheryl did a Wonder Woman pose along with her favorite Sun UV Digger truck. Then they were among the first to get seated for the start of racing. A driver for Tony's favorite truck drove the Monster Jam 25th anniversary truck for the world's first forward momentum backflip. At the end of the show, on the order of 70 trucks took the stadium floor.
Day 2 and it is freestyle day. Stadium was a little more crowded by the time the Cooper family got their seats. Every good Monster Jam show starts with a parade of trucks. Neither of the big dogs were driving this year at Monster Jam. Tom Means was injured and Dennis Anderson has retired. But both Maximum Destruction and Gravedigger were well represented by their owners' sons driving many versions of their respective trucks. Sonny the Digger had a great backflip but then suffered an embarrassing turtle. Another Gravedigger pulled off an equally impressive backflip but then suffered a broken axle on the next jump. Tony's favorite pulled off a backflip and then the first ever reverse backflip followed up with an amazing recovery. Tony thought Maximum Destruction had just won the event. In any normal year, this would have been true. But 2017, there was Mad Scientist driven by Lee O'Donnell. Before I stop talking, I'll mention that in interviews after the event, Lee said that he tried it the week before but it didn't work out so well. At Monster Jam, the gods smiled on him. Watch this. Was the 35th anniversary of Gravedigger. They put on the encore. 7 grave diggers took the floor where all of them were damaged. As the smoke cleared, the Coopers had to pose with all the carnage.
April 2017.
Back to rocket flying. April Fool's Day and the Piñata had a perfect flight.
Today launch and the Piñata rocket performed flawlessly again.
May 2017.
May arrived and Tony and Cheryl went to 3 days of Bottle Rock again and Tony proved that he really does wear sunscreen.
Then they spent an extra day there to go to their favorite winery, Castello di Amorosa.
Then on to Chamberlain's for a Memorial Day family gathering. The family had 4 high school graduates, but only 3 could attend. Joy was missing and was missed. Then all the cousins posed for a photo. June 2017.
June came and Crystal graduated. She had to decorate her cap and surprisingly the school did not issue any threats about decorating. They did say that the kids could not wear or lei. Many kids showed up with many leis, so then it became, they could wear one lei.
Crystal Ember Cooper, graduating with academic achievement.
Isaías Fregoso Ramirez, graduating with honors.
Ayari Yunuen.
The next evening Crystal's parents threw a graduation supper for her.
Being wine club members, Tony and Cheryl get invited to many events at their favorite winery. This event was called Midsummer Medieval Festival. It was an afternoon of jousting, bottomless wine glasses and an evening of feasting with knights and ladies. The staff photographer managed to catch Tony and Cheryl in about a dozen photos.
Tony and Cheryl were in Murphy's, California and saw advertisement for John Mellencamp concert. On a lark, they decided to check if there were tickets available. To their surprise, there were only about 15 rows back from the stage. As Tony likes to put it, he and John spent the evening singing Little Pink Houses together.
A few days after Crystal's graduation, they all had to return to the scene and take a lot of photos. Here are only a few. July 2017.
Last year Tony booked a bay cruise for 4th of July. This year he decided to do it again. It really is a fantastic way to spend the evening. To Tony's surprise they took complimentary brow photos. You know, those photos that they usually charge you $20 or more.
Tony took the week off work before summer vacation and replaced the fence on the south side of the house. He stupidly posted his success to Facebook. I say stupidly because he got 3 friend requests for fences.
Peggy, Crystal, Tony and Cheryl started vacation off with a week-long cruise around the Hawaiian Islands on the ship, Pride of America.
Their first stop was Maui. They took a tour of a sugar plantation and then a visit to the Maui Ocean Center. They reenacted a photo from 10 years earlier that included Kevon.
Next day, Tony, Cheryl and Crystal took a catamaran cruise to Lanai for a snorkeling adventure. The first of many. On the way to the dive site, they saw spinner and bottlenose dolphins. As soon as Tony hit the water, he saw a group of spotted eagle rays.
Next day they all took the secrets tour on the Big Island. They visited many lava flow sites, seeing the different kinds of lava, the beauty along with the destruction.
That evening the girls took lei making classes and then posed with their creations.
Next up was their first luau. They got complimentary leis to start the evening. At the end, as they waited for their bus to arrive, Peggy complained about breaking one of the flowers in her lei. Crystal started gathering up all the extra leis lying around and stacking them on her grandmother.
They spent the next day walking and sightseeing. Crystal and Cheryl stopped to feed some koi fish at a Marriott hotel. They claimed to have one of the world's largest koi collections.
That evening the cruise ship made a run by the Nahali coast. Tony made them pose for a photo.
back on land, and they had a week in Waikiki. They mostly took sunset walks and relaxed.
Did you know that Waikiki has a sunset every evening?
On one of those sightseeing trips, Cheryl found Tony a new t-shirt. He wore it to the Chief's luau and had to take pictures just to tease Bob Cooper. They had a good time at the luau, and the Chief had to bless Tony and Cheryl's 30th anniversary.
Next up was a stop at their favorite resort, Ko'olina. They stayed there just over a week, snorkeling twice a day and doing whatever they liked, including sunset yoga.
August 2017.
First day snorkeling at their home resort, and they noticed that the water was pretty cloudy. They still had a great time snorkeling, but it wasn't the same as they remembered. They asked around and learned that there was an algae bloom in their local lagoon. As they started snorkeling in other nearby lagoons, they could see better. Pretty soon they started seeing more wildlife and more varieties of animals. Tony spotted an octopus. Over the days, flounders were a frequent sighting. They got to see a lot of sea cucumbers, sea turtles. Then they saw this strange creature. It is called a flying gurnard. Crystal taught the rest of them that if they scraped the buoy guidelines, the drifting algae attracted many different kinds of fish.
There was an issue with the boat 5 years earlier, and the tour boat gave the Cooper family vouchers for a return visit. They decided to take a scuba tour as a replacement. Tony and Cheryl had been scuba diving once before. This was a first-time experience for Crystal. They saw dolphins, turtles, eels, sea stars, a white-tipped shark, and massive volumes of fish.
The family also saw some land animals. A centipede, a mongoose, and a blue heron.
The family booked another tour, called a turtle tour. The guides billed it as a turtle car wash. Just off of Waikiki Beach, there is a bit of a canyon. The turtles frequent the spot and let the reef fish clean them. Tony believes that Crystal claimed to see 9 turtles at once.
How about a few more sunset photos?
The family spent a day on a self-guided tour. They heard about a great snorkeling place called Shark's Cove. The water entry was very difficult due to rocks and waves trying to break their ankles. But once in the water, it was truly excellent.
The return trip they made as long as possible, making a stop at the Pali Lookout. If you've never been there, it is a beautiful place to see, and the winds are amazingly strong. When Tony was a child, he remembers many times that it was closed because of how strong the wind was.
As evening set, they stopped at the blowhole.
Tony looked at a Google satellite view and thought that he might find some excellent snorkeling if he just started swimming out from Waikiki Beach. He knew the water was cloudy near the beach, but he figured it would clear. He started swimming after a long time. He still could not see farther than the length of his arm. As waves washed over him, he could see the rocks at arm's length. In due time, his fear of predators and boats made him turn back. He privately guessed that he swam about a mile out. He claimed to his family that he went over 1,000 feet. A quick calculation of camera resolution and lens focal length from this selfie he took showed that the 300-foot building was about 4,500 feet away.
Last day in Hawaii and more sunset photos.
A couple from the plane as they left, and a last sunset over halfway to California. September 2017.
Back in California, and it was time for Bone Bash. The family got to watch Cheap Trick, Foreigner, and Jason Bonham's Led Zeppelin Experience.
Labor Day, and the family gathered at the Chamberlain house. They got all the cousins together again for another group photo.
Remember that fence that Tony bragged about on Facebook? His mother-in-law sure did. Vacation fun over, so she asked for 40 foot of her fence to be replaced. Cheryl helped the two of them build it.
The next weekend, Tony and Cheryl left the Bay Area to go to Bacon Fest near Stockton. Music, bacon and beer. Works for Tony.
Remember that fence? So did Cheryl. She decided she wanted the other gate replaced to match the new gate. Kevin stepped up to help on this one. Cheryl tried to step up, but she had to be held up to see. October 2017.
Tony and Kevin must use the breathalyzer too much. Its battery went bad and Tony had to buy a new one. Obviously they had to test it out.
In the spring, Tony heard about a concert festival of hard rock called Aftershock. He and the kids were looking forward to seeing Marilyn Manson play. 2 weeks before the show, Marilyn broke his leg in a stage accident. He didn't show. Ozzy Osbourne made it worth a 2-day festival.
November 2017.
The Cooper family spent Thanksgiving at the usual place, but no photos were taken. 20 years ago.
Time to roll back the calendar 20 years. What happened? Tony did not have real dates for things, but Kevin went to sewing class with Grandma. He also liked to take rides on Tony's motorcycle. Then there was that epic multi-family cross-country and an RV trip where we will ignore the details of the brake rotors cracking while traversing the grapevine. Tony and Cheryl teamed up with John and Katie to kidnap Peggy, Tracy, Melissa, and Ashley on a family reunion trip. They made a stop in Las Vegas. Then it was on to the Cooper family reunion in Oklahoma where more Coopers joined them. Nick and Kathy rode a motorcycle all the way. They did some swimming in Lake Texoma. Kevin made a friend. Here is a group shot of the California Coopers that made it to the reunion. Tim, Katie, John, Nick, Bill, Peggy, Bob, Kathy, Lois, Tracy, Phyllis, Cheryl, Tony, Ashley, Melissa, and Kevin. Being close to Tony's home state of Iowa, he insisted that they stop a couple days. Tony's in-laws got to meet Tony's family. Here are some names from Tony's point of view. Tony with his grandpa, Ad Snyder. Great Uncle Jim, Great Aunt Emma, Grandma Jean Snyder, Uncle Jim, and Cousin Tiffany. Brother Joe, Tony, playing an illegal game of lawn darts against sister and brother-in-law Katie and John Cooper. Mother Kathy and Aunt Carol. And of course all the kids, Melissa, Kevin, Ashley, and Tracy. On their return trip to California, they stopped at Mount Rushmore. They took a few nice group photos there. Later in the day they stopped at Devil's Tower, Wyoming. As they left, a thunderstorm started. Tony tried to capture group photos with lightning but he didn't succeed. Then the lightning got too close to stick around. As they neared home, they made a stop in Gerber, California to see Aunt Sam, Uncle Tom and more family. Grandma Ruby Cooper passed on August 6, 1997. Only a few photos exist of people who attended her memorial service. Larry partnered up with Kevin to play some tetherball. John, Ted, Tony, Katie, Peggy, Kevin and Cheryl posed for a family photo. Tony and Kevin created a couple plastic model conversion of a fictional SR-72 Aurora into a rocket and then flew it at Robertson Park. Nick Chamberlain, Miller girls and other friends attended. One was flown. Kevin turned 4 years old. He was in love with Thomas the Tank Engine. He spent a little time in front of Grandma Peggy's house making it rain leaves. He liked seeing his demon eyes light up at night in the infrared light of the camcorder. Kevin was attending preschool and got a seating with the jolly bearded man himself. 50 years ago.
Now for the last feature, 50 years ago. On Tony's side, he and his brother did some poses on a chair that were destined to become the family Christmas card. On Cheryl's side, there is a group photo of the extended family. There is also a multi-generation photo of all the females. After Peggy survived the 9-month flu, Ted J. Cooper was born. Many photos exist of him with various family members, including the Jolly Saint himself. Bob and Phyllis got married.
That concludes the 2017 Cooper year-end video letter.